Hi, how are you all doing? Well, I'm going to be talking today about how to cope with what life throws our way. So, first, I'm going to move the mic stand out of the way. That's better. Great. Well, maybe some of you will be able to join me today. I'm trying to work on getting this set up better so that people will have a nice heads up about when I'll be live. Today, we're going to talk about how to cope with what life throws your way. So, for example, I had a whole big thing set up. We are going to have a nice logo up there or other things, and Facebook just wasn't really having it. So what we do is we accept what we can manage, which is going live about when I said I was. And then we accept and navigate what doesn't go our way, and maybe think about what went wrong, what we can change the next time, but not dwelling on it, because that has a likelihood of making us feel kind of down. So today, I want to talk to you about, like I said, how to cope with what life throws our way. Now, what's that mean? Fair question. What that means is there's all sorts of stresses and tough times that we might experience, whether that's separating from someone you've been with for a while or moving in together with someone you've been dating for a while. Not all stress is because of bad things. Sometimes positive events can be stressful, like getting a new job. That can be really stressful. So, how do you cope? Well, one way is to think about how skyscrapers cope with stress. Now, this might sound silly, and I apologize for the glare in my glasses, but skyscrapers aren't just built to be strong. Because if they were strong and not flexible, well, a huge, great wind, it wouldn't work very well. Let's just leave it at that. So skyscrapers are actually built not just to stand tall, but to also kind of bend with the wind at times. If you've ever been at the top of a very, very tall skyscraper, you might have even had a sense of it bending slightly in the wind. And while that's scary to a degree if you're at the top, it's also much better than the alternative, right? So there are times when if we're under a lot of stress and we're not going to acknowledge it or flex a little bit with the times, it's going to be even more difficult on us. So maybe you were raised where you're told to just kind of put on a brave face. There's nothing wrong with that. But the key is, if the only thing you're doing to cope with difficult times is putting on a brave face and not finding some other way of managing or navigating the stress you're under, then that stress is going to keep working at you, kind of wearing you down over time. And over time, oh, hey, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Feel free to post any comments or questions on the side there, and I'll try and get to any of your questions you have. So, as I was saying, if you're just putting on a brave face and getting kind of worn down, stressed out, that stress is going to get you over time. So it's important to think about what helps you manage stress. For some people, that's running. Other people, that might be meditation, breathing, reading a fun book, watching some junky TV. For some people, that's pouring a glass of wine. Now, we don't have to get into that too much today, but I'd say it's important to pay attention to whether or not the way that you cope with stress help you in the long run, or if they help just in that one moment and later on may cause more difficulty. I'd love to take any questions or comments you have about how you cope with stress or difficult times. Another thing that I found myself thinking yesterday while rummaging through a junk drawer in my house is, in a lot of ways, the way we cope with stress can sometimes be like a junk drawer. We kind of accumulate these things over time that have felt helpful and useful in one way or another. The trick is, what I found useful the other day may not be useful in this day and age. For example, if in your junk drawer, like me, full of old tech and things, you have a Betamax player. Now, I didn't find one in my junk drawer, but I'm just saying, that player probably isn't as useful for you anymore as it used to be. Or another example, maybe you have the first cell phone you ever got. that cell phone probably doesn't work so well for you anymore. Now, it once had a lot of value and was really useful to you. But the trick is, just because something used to work for us doesn't mean it does anymore. And it's up to us to pay attention to that. So for example, you might have been hurt by someone once. Maybe someone you trusted didn't deserve your trust. And that's hard. It happens to all of us. Not everyone's the right fit for us. Not everyone we trust is going to earn that trust, unfortunately. But oftentimes, the way of dealing with that might be to put up walls to say, you know what, stay away. If I can't trust any of you, you're not going to get near me. And that can work for a time, right? That can buy you the space and time to heal from that wound. But the trouble is, over time, you may find yourself wanting to connect to someone else who you care about, or someone else who maybe could be a good friend, a better friend, maybe a better partner than that other person was. And if those walls are still up because they were useful to you way back when, well, that's going to be a problem. And you might find yourself, having arguments with that partner or that friend where they say, oh, why don't you share with me? Or why is it always one-sided? I want to connect with you. And you say, what do you mean? Well, stay back. The trouble is, that makes it hard to connect with other people. So in those moments, you might want to look and say, okay, so these walls served me well. I'm not saying I want to take them down right away, but how could I lower them a little bit? And are they the right thing in this moment? If I'm worried, if I want to defend myself against ever being hurt again, I can decide what height should those walls be. But sometimes by trying to desperately avoid what we fear and what we worry about, what's happened to us in the past, we find ourselves in similar or different places that are equally hurtful, if not completely different. So for example, if you say go to the beach one day and you are out in the sun, you're having a good time, you're relaxing, and suddenly a few hours have passed and you're exhausted, you're kind of feeling dizzy, suddenly you realize you didn't bring any water with you to the beach, and you end up getting heat stroke, dehydration. That's pretty dangerous. So you might say in the future, after you've gotten first aid and been taken care of, I never want that to happen to me again. And because of that, you may decide to always carry 3 gallons of water with you wherever you go. No, is that so bad? No, not necessarily, right? 3 gallons of water, that's, let's see, a gallon of water is 8 pounds. So that's an extra 24 pounds you're always carrying around with you if that's 3 gallons of water. So that's a lot. Over time, that may start wearing you down. Now, on the other hand, you might say, well, but I'm never going to get dehydrated again. And that's true. That's fair. But you also may start having some back issues, or your arm muscles might start hurting if you're, carrying them in your hands or in a bag. Or if you're carrying them in a backpack, your back might start hurting. Or maybe other people are starting to give you weird looks, like, why do you always carry around 3 gallons of water with you no matter where you go? There's water fountains in stores, and you could, keep a bottle of water with you. Don't need 3 gallons. You say, well, you know what? One time this happened and it really scared me. And that's reasonable. Just because the cause of what's led you to act the way you do is totally valid doesn't always necessarily mean that the way we cope is the best way for us to cope. Right? There's a whole lot of ways you can learn to do things in life. Doesn't make any one of them the best just because it's the first one you found. That's not to say it's the worst either, but it's important for us to really explore and look at how we manage with things in life. Whether it's unexpected things or expected things. Sometimes trying to prepare for a difficult situation can turn into worry or rumination. So rumination, what's that? We don't all talk about that. Well, rumination is when you're constantly thinking about something. So you're not just planning out what you're going to pack for a trip coming up. You're thinking about it all the time. So much so maybe that if you're ruminating on it, sorry about that, getting over a little cold. If you're ruminating on it, you might not be able to fall asleep because you're thinking so much about it. All these thoughts are just going through your head nonstop. You want to go to sleep, but it's just not working for you. So that's rumination. So like I said, you might be preparing for something by thinking about it and ruminating on it, but then that's going to be causing you stress. And if you're stressed, you might have trouble sleeping. You might find yourself a bit more irritable. And there's all these side effects sometimes of when we try to do the right thing, whether it's preparing for a difficult time or packing for a trip, where our preparations can almost become a new problem to solve or a new struggle that we have. So if you're finding yourself thinking so much about something that it's getting in your way, you should know that there's help. Whether you're in Winter Park, Florida, and you want to call me up and come in for a session in my office, whether you're located further afield in Florida, Pennsylvania, or New Jersey, 3 states I'm licensed in, and would like to join me for a teletherapy session. That's online therapy, face-to-face using our webcams. You'll be able to hear me through your earbuds and see me just like this. There's hope. Anxiety, worry, stress, all of these things can be helped through therapy. And one thing I like to say about psychotherapy, first of all, let's get a few misconceptions out of the way. It's not weak to go into therapy. A lot of people say, oh, but isn't therapy just for this type of person or that type of person? No, therapy is a place for all type of people. Doesn't matter your race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religion, faith, mode of spirituality, or form of your family. Therapy is a place for you. Secondly, if you're watching this, you might be aware that there's some stigma about going into therapy. And that's why I point out to people that anyone who's ever told you that therapy is for people who are weak or can't manage things on their own clearly hasn't gotten up the strength to go into therapy. And that's okay. That's their choice. Maybe they don't feel they need it, or maybe just like they've said to you, they're struggling with the stigma of it. But here's the trick. Just speaking for myself, if I get a serious infection, I go to my physician, my primary care doctor, and if he just deems it necessary, I ask for some antibiotics. Why is that? Well, antibiotics are a tool for me. They're a way that I can work to get better. Now, I could say, yeah, I've got an immune system, so I don't need them. And that's true. But we also know that before we had antibiotics, there's a lot more suffering in this world. And guess what? Without therapy, there'd be a lot more suffering in this world too. Secondly, therapy, you don't have to worry about being in therapy for life. Sometimes people come in and talk to me and they say, I don't want to be on this medication for life. That's fine. I don't blame you. I think that's quite reasonable. But the beauty of therapy, and they've shown this in studies, is that the positive effects of therapy last after you stop going to therapy. Well, what do you mean? I'll repeat that. The positive effects of therapy continue after you've stopped going to therapy. That means progress you make while you're meeting with me or some other therapist or psychologist, those aren't time limited. You'll gain those benefits after you stop. Whereas medication, you don't have the benefits of medication after you stop. Now let's be clear though. A, I'm not a medical doctor. And B, I support the use of medication if that's what you need. There's no reason, just like I said earlier, I wouldn't not use antibiotics because someone else thought they were silly. And I wouldn't not take medication if I thought that that was the right thing to do. Furthermore, I think that there are times when medication helps people be able to come into therapy, where they can't quite get up the energy or the motivation to go and meet with someone if they didn't have that boost that long-acting antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication can have. Additionally, mood stabilizers can be very useful for those who need them. There's nothing wrong with you if you're taking them. It's just another way of coping. That's right. We're going to take a deep breath. It can be easy to ramble and let your words get ahead of your thoughts. Sometimes that's how we get ourselves in trouble. You might be talking to a friend or family member and say something because you were talking faster than you were thinking. You know, it happens. The important part is being able to acknowledge it and explore with that person what just happened, what you said to them, whether you meant it, if you didn't mean it, what you were trying to say. Hi, see you watching there. If you'd like to make a comment or put any questions or thoughts you have in the comments, be glad to answer any of your questions. Nice to see you. So, as I was saying, talking with friends or family, sometimes our words get ahead of our thoughts. And the important part is to be able to focus on how we're feeling. Let's say you're in an argument or a fight with someone, focus on how you're feeling. So it's easy to say, you did this and I'm pissed off. Well, if instead of saying, why didn't you wash the dishes, really wish you had washed the dishes, we can say, I felt frustrated when you were washing the dishes. Scratch that. See, words getting ahead of thoughts again. I felt frustrated that you didn't wash the dishes because you told me you were going to, and afterwards, they were still dirty. So I felt like you had let me down. It made me sad that you weren't thinking of me. That's very different than a fight over, you didn't do the dishes. Why didn't you do the dishes? Which then leaves someone on the defensive. And I think we all know how we act when we're on the defensive. It's not very positive. It's not very open to other ideas. So the question is, how do you want to cope with those moments, like I just had, when your thoughts are a little behind your words? When you say something that maybe you didn't really mean, or you say something you did mean, but the person you're talking to misunderstood it, or it meant something different to them when you said it. So that's one of those times when you want to take a deep breath. Acknowledge how they feel in the same way that you want them to acknowledge how you feel. So maybe you'd say, wow, that's nice. It's possible that they take it defensively and hear, what? You didn't like what I was doing 2 minutes ago? So in that moment, you could say, you know, I just want to pause because it sounds like you feel like I was criticizing you, but what I meant to say was, I admire what you're doing right now. I didn't mean to comment on what you were doing 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. But it sounds like you're upset, so, you know, I'm sorry that came off wrong. And then they can say, huh, you're right, I didn't quite understand that. Thanks, I appreciate the compliment. Which goes very differently than if you, for instance, talk about, hey, you know, I was just trying to give you a compliment, no need to get all snarky about it. And the two of you might end up in a fight, might end up in an argument that lasts a lot longer than a couple minutes. Okay, well, we're about to hit the 20-minute mark for this Facebook Live, so I think I'm going to wrap up shortly. A few people have popped in, popped out, but I also hope that those of you who are watching this later get some value out of it. If you do, please feel free to like, comment, and share it. And equally, if you found yourself a little frustrated with something I said today, please feel free to comment, and I'd love to talk with you about that more. So, mentioned earlier, my office is located in Winter Park, Florida. I offer psychotherapy to both individuals and couples in my office. Whatever lifestyle, whatever values, religion, faith, gender, ethnicity, sexuality, you're all welcome. Additionally, I offer teletherapy, which is online therapy via video, to residents of Florida, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So if you're located in any of those 3 states and not near Orlando, Florida, Winter Park, Florida, where my office is, feel free to give me a call. You can reach me at 407-413-8169. And I also speak Spanish. So if you know anyone who's Spanish speaking or you prefer Spanish, podemos hacer terapia en español. Tú tienes esa opción también. Y me puede llamar al 407-720-6880. Otra vez, 407-720-6880. Now, if you speak both languages, you might have just heard me say 2 different phone numbers, one in English, 407-413-8169, and a different phone number in Spanish. Both those phone numbers will reach me. I have a phone tree set up so that no matter what language you speak, you get the menu that you prefer. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great day. Hope the rest of your week goes well. And that you're able to look at all the different ways you cope and what's working for you these days and what might not be working for you anymore. Again, this is Dr. Daniel Brayman, hoping you work your way to the life you deserve. Thank you.